Parents secretly charged $115K on my credit card for my sister's Europe trip, so I reported it as fraud, leading to major family fallout. Though I never imagined I would be producing an article like this, here I am still in shock and bewilderment over what my parents have done. Alex, 28. Has a younger sister, Emma, 22F, who recently graduated from college. Although our parents have always been, let's say, fascinating in their style of raising their children, this most recent act infuriates me. For background, I have always been the family's responsible one. After working hard in school, I applied for scholarships, and straight out of college earned a decent position in finance. Since I was 22, I have been financially independent. I am glad of what I have done. Emma, on the other hand, has always been the family's young darling. I love my sister, so don't get me wrong. Yet our parents have clearly pampered her. Emma was always obviously the favorite growing up. She was never forced to work a part-time job or help with housework. She acquired the newest appliances and outfits. Focusing on my own objectives and future, I tried not to let it disturb me too much. Nevertheless, occasionally the partiality was difficult to overlook. One specific event came to me when Emma was 10 and I was 16. Months of saving had gone into a new gaming system purchase. Excitedly telling my parents I was heading to the store to buy it, the day I at last had enough money. They answered shockingly, "Oh, we already got one for Emma last week, you are welcome to share hers." Though I was heartbroken, I tried to be happy for my sister and stashed my disappointment. Still, forward swiftly toward the present. Emma recently finished with a degree in communications. She worked hard and deserves to celebrate her accomplishment, hence I am actually proud of her. I also gave her a beautiful graduation present, a new laptop she had been coveting. I heard from my mother last week. She was bursting with enthusiasm, sharing with me Emma's ideal graduation present, a month-long trip throughout Europe. Thinking Emma's gift from our parents was a kind one, I was pleased for her. The shocking revelation then came. "We used your credit card to book it all," my mother remarked dismissively, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "We needed the points from your card to upgrade some of the flights and hotels, thus we will pay you back, naturally." I had no words. What I was hearing defied belief. When I finally recovered my voice, I inquired about their expenditure. The response made me feel as though I had been pummeled in the gut. $155,000. $155,000 on my credit card without authorization or knowledge. Trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom," I continued, "you cannot just use my credit card without asking me. That's illegal. $155,000 is a lot of money." She discounts my worries. "Oh, Alex, be not too theatrical. It relates to the graduation of your sister. Family looks out for one another. Beyond that, we're good for it. Eventually we will pay you back." Finally. Even then, what did that mean? And because $155,000 is just casual about when. My mother wasn't hearing it when I attempted to explain to her why this was such a big deal. The effect on my credit score, the fact that I might need the credit limit for emergencies, the pure betrayal of trust. "You have always been so selfish," she remarked, her voice going icy. "Could you simply be glad for your sister? This is her big moment. Your penny-pinching habits are trying to destroy it." What I was hearing defied belief. For complaining about an illegal $155,000 transaction on my credit card, I was seen as selfish. I hung up the call feeling a mixture of hurt, wrath, and incredulity. I tried to talk to my dad over the next few days, expecting he would be more reasonable, but he confirmed what my mother had said, that I was exaggerating? And I should encourage my sister more. Emma, for her part, appeared completely blind to the circumstances. She simply gushed about how thrilled she was about the trip and thanked me for helping her to graduate. When I tried to discuss it with her, I thought I was insane. Was I indeed the irrational one present? To contest the charges, I decided to phone the credit card company. However, to my astonishment, I found that my parents had booked everything online using my card details, which they had in case of an emergency. The credit card company said that it wasn't deemed fraud as I had provided them with my details. I now have a $115,000 debt, a maxed-out credit card, and a family who believes I'm being self-serving for not wanting to pay for my sister's expensive trip. The individuals who are meant to love and encourage me have betrayed me, hurt and angered me. What to do eludes me. Though I know that would cause great family strife, part of me wants to call off the entire vacation. Another side of me wants to simply pay it off to save the drama, but $115,000 is a lot of money and the idea of the thing truly disturbs me. Furthermore, allowing this fall could set a standard for more financial mistreatment going forward. Is my reaction too strong? Should I just swallow it and pay for my sister's vacation, or should I stick to it even if it means maybe souring ties with my family? I could really use some guidance. I feel lost. Update 1. I appreciate all of your advice and encouraging words. The sheer reaction to my post really startled me. Reviewing your responses helped me to see that my anger over this scenario was not insane. I felt violated. Considering your counsel, I decided to proceed. I first escalated the problem by phoning my credit card provider once more. I detailed the circumstances, stressing that although my parents had my card information for an emergency, I had never approved this particular use. Following some back off, they decided to look at the charges as possible fraud. I then asked for a family Zoom call to go over the matter and texted Emma and my parents groupwise. Before acting more forcefully, I wanted to let them have an opportunity to write this. The call was, at least mildly intense. I began gently outlining why their acts were unacceptable, the legal ramifications, the mistrust, and the financial burden it placed on me. I informed them they had to immediately cancel the vacation since I had reported the charges as fraudulent. The response of my parents did not reflect what I had hoped. They were outraged, accusing me of being dramatic and seeking to spoil Emma's graduation party. My mother went so far as to add, "We raised you, clothed you, and covered your head with a roof. The least you could do is assist your sister in having a lifetime of travel." I inhaled deeply and answered, "You decided to have children. Your obligation as parents was to support us. It does not mean you are free to use credit cards under my identity." Emma, who had been calm up until now, started crying. She wailed, "I can't believe you're trying to ruin my graduation gift. You have always harbors envy of me. Why can't you simply be glad for me once?" Her comments stung, but they also sharpened my will. I knew this pattern of entitlement and favoritism ran deep, and it was time to create some clear limits. "Emma," I continued, trying to keep my voice soft but strong, "I'm glad for you and I'm proud of your graduation. But this vacation was booked illegally with money taken without permission. It's not okay and it's not a gift from me." At last, my normally quiet dad spoke up. "Son, we didn't think it was such a big deal. For crises, we have always had access to your card. As a family, we simply reasoned that this one occasion would be acceptable." What I was hearing defied belief. "Dad, this was not an emergency and $155,000 is not a small sum. You cannot only choose to spend my money without consulting me." Emma was crying, my parents were furious, and I felt exhausted but determined when the call finished. Insisting that I was overreacting and that they would reimburse me shortly, they refused to call off the trip. Following the conference, I moved forward. I told a buddy of mine, a lawyer, the circumstances. He cautioned me that, should I decide to take legal action, what my parents did was in fact illegal and grounds for legal action exist. I also reported the illegal credit card use by going to the police station. The officer I spoke with took down all the specifics and was sympathetic. He advised me that although following charges would probably cause a significant divide in my family, I was quite within my rights to do so. About what to do going forward, I'm still divided. I adore my family, on one hand, yet I get nauseous thinking about suing them. Conversely, their behavior is inappropriate. Hence, if I do not act strongly right now, this kind of behavior may resurface in the future. I have chosen to wait and see for now what results from the credit card company's inquiry. To stop any more illegal usage of my information, I also froze my credit. This whole scenario has let me know I had to set more rigid rules for my family. Though I've always attempted to be the peacekeeper, that is, to straighten things out and maintain everyone's happiness, I have let myself be repeatedly exploited in doing so. Though I'm hurt and outraged, I also feel an odd sort of empowerment. I'm standing up for myself and saying no, this is unacceptable, for the first time. Though unpleasant and frightening, it also seems vital. Again, thanks all for your support and guidance. Once I have more updates on the credit card inquiry or if anything else comes of course with my family, I will update once more. Update 2. My previous update was several weeks ago and a lot has transpired. I wish to thank them once more for their help and guidance. Your remarks have been a lighthouse through this trying period. First, the good news. My credit card company's inquiry came back positive. They reversed the charges since they agreed they were illegal. Having that $115,000 weight off of my shoulders relieves a great deal. Now let's consider familial fallout. All hell exploded when my parents and Emma discovered the credit card dispute had caused the trip to be cancelled. Furious calls and texts swamped my phone. Saying I had destroyed Emma's life, my mother left an especially angry message labeling me a selfish, unappreciative son. Emma went to social media and shared a moving video about how her spiteful brother had ruined her dream graduation trip. A few of our shared friends and relatives began contacting me to find out why I was treating my younger sister so badly. The matter was spiraling out of control, and I knew I had to straighten the record. I posted a calm, objective piece outlining what had actually happened. How my card had been used without my consent and how I had tried to mend things with my family prior to acting with the credit card company. The reaction to my post was uneven. Some were encouraging, expressing dismay at the behavior of my parents. Others felt I ought to have just taken one for the team and let Emma travel. Finding out how many others felt it acceptable to conduct fraud as long as it was for the family opened eyes. A few days following my post, my mother's sister called me unexpectedly. She offered some family history I hadn't learned before and showed understanding of my circumstances. My mother apparently had a history of financial irresponsibility and has past taken advantage of family members. My aunt gave me her support and urged me to be firm. Talking with my aunt helped me to see that the problem went beyond one occurrence. Years of enabled and excused behavior have set a habit of behavior. I understood then that I had to keep strict limits not only for my own benefit but also to stop the cycle of financial mistreatment. I made the decision to go really big. For the foreseeable future, I informed my parents I would be not interacting with them at all. I said I couldn't trust them right now and I needed time to sort through what had happened. Emma also heard me say that although I loved her and felt good about her accomplishments, I wanted some distance from her too. Their responses were almost always unfavorable. My parents charged me with severing the family. Emma sobbed and stated I was punishing her for something outside her control. Though difficult, I stayed to be sure of my choice. Amid all this family turmoil, I have been especially focused on shielding myself against potential financial mistreatment. I replaced all of my passwords, closed the credit card my parents had access to, and opened a fresh one at another bank. To work through my emotions about the circumstances and create better limits, I have also begun visiting a therapist. One unanticipated benefit of this whole process is that it has brought me closer to a few relatives and my aunt, who contacted me to provide encouragement. Knowing that not every member of my family finds what my parents did acceptable is good. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, I learned via the family grapevine that her parents are still considering sending her someplace. Though I keep reminding myself that it wasn't my obligation to offer that for her, part of me feels bad about her missing the Europe vacation. I still find myself battling doubt and remorse. Sometimes I worry whether I did the right thing or too hard, but then I remember the violation I felt when I found out what they had done and I know I made the correct decision in speaking out for myself. Though it's a painful wake-up call, this event has also been a valuable lesson in self-respect and establishing limitations. I'm finding that love shouldn't have a price tag and that saying no, even to family, is okay. Again, I appreciate your support. For now, I'm concentrating on mending and moving forward. I will post should there be any noteworthy changes. Update 3. My last update was almost 2 months ago, hence I wanted to let you all know some advancements. Over this trying period, your ongoing support and guidance has been priceless. Let us start with the most urgent matter, the legal one. Following much thought and legal advice, I opted against charging my parents. This wasn't a simple choice, and I know many of you suggested I file a lawsuit. My attorney noted though, that since the credit card company had reversed the charges, going for a criminal prosecution would be difficult and maybe expensive without any assurance of victory. Rather, we have formally written my parents a cease and desist letter telling them that any future use of my financial data will cause instant legal action. Now, on the family matter. The no-contact period with Emma and my parents has been instructive and difficult at once. It allows me time to consider our family dynamics and concentrate on myself. Having regularly attended therapy, which has been quite beneficial in helping me to process my emotions and create better limits, about 1 month into the no-contact period, Emma sent me an uninvited email. Unlike her earlier crying claims, this email was refreshingly adult. She said she had given it much thought and came to see how mistaken our parents' behavior was. She felt bad about her first response and about not defending me. Emma said she had always known about the favoritism but had been too comfortable and afraid to question it. Though I was cautiously hopeful by Emma's email, I decided to go gently. Since then, we have had a few phone calls. From what I can see, she is actually attempting to grasp my viewpoint. She had earlier kept to herself some of her own experiences with our parents' financial carelessness. The aborted Europe trip seemed to be a wake-up call for her as well. Regarding my parents, they have been less ready to take accountability. From guilt-tripping emails to enraged voicemails, they have tried multiple times to reach me. One day, my mother even showed up at my apartment without warning, creating quite a disturbance in the corridor. Though it was tough, I stayed my ground and avoided interacting. The extended family dynamics have been conflicted. Some families have been encouraging, especially my aunt who first got in touch. She is now a great friend and ally. Others, using the "but their family" justification, nevertheless encourage me to reconcile with my parents. For my own mental peace, I have had to cut ties to some of these cousins. Positively, nonetheless, this circumstances has resulted in some unanticipated personal development. Spending the time and effort I used to manage the drama in my family has helped me to concentrate more on my own life and aspirations. I have started a new pastime, photography, and have been spending more time with pals that honor my limits. I have also made some really important financial choices. I started establishing a stronger emergency fund and have been more generous to my retirement funds. The value of financial freedom and stability has been really emphasized by this whole experience. Last week brought one especially fulfilling event. At work, I got a promotion accompanied by a significant wage raise. I might have felt obliged in the past to tell my family this news and the money gained. This time I celebrated privately with a small group of close friends, glad of my achievements free from guilt or obligation to share. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, my aunt told me our parents ultimately sent her on a 2-week California tour. Emma apparently had fun with it. Looking ahead, I'm somewhat hopeful but yet wary. I have chosen to keep my parents under no contact for at least 3 more months. I need more time to recover and evaluate whether they can honor my limits. Emma allows me to gently restore our friendship, but I'm moving carefully and keeping clear limits. This encounter has really helped me to learn about the real meaning of family, standing up for myself, and establishing limits. Family, I've come to see, is about love, respect, and support as much as blood ties. The friends and relatives who have supported me during this struggle have shown me what actual family entails. About financial freedom, I have also gained a useful insight. Although I have always been frugal with money, this scenario has made me especially more alert. On all of my accounts, I have added extra security measures. I have also become more aggressive in safeguarding my financial data, even from relatives. Particularly during family gatherings I missed because of the no-contact policy, there have been times of uncertainty and grief. Mother's Day proved especially challenging, but I remind myself that my mental health and personal development depend on this distance. One unanticipated result of this is that I have started to be really helpful to friends handling personal family financial problems. Many people have come to me seeking guidance on establishing limits and handling financially reckless family members. Being able to guide others through the same circumstances makes one feel wonderful. Regarding my parents' financial circumstances, my aunt has told me they are having trouble. Apparently, they had been depending on my credit for purposes beyond Emma's vacation. This has caused some conflict between them since my dad holds my mom responsible for pushing too far with the credit card theft. Though part of me feels bad knowing they are facing money problems, I tell myself that their bad financial choices are not my duty to correct. Emma has offered some observations on how our parents responded to all of this. She adds they still don't really know why I responded so passionately. They can't understand why I'm making such a big deal out of it. They view their activities as natural family behavior. This ignorance irritates me, but it also helps me to realize that I made the correct choice in separating myself. After much thought on my early years and early adulthood, I came to see trends of financial and emotional control I had accepted. Though it's been a difficult journey, it also releases something. I'm learning to validate my own emotions and experiences apart from parental approval. Regarding my personal life, I have lately started dating once more. Dealing with all this familial drama, I had been reluctant to interact with anyone. But lately I came across someone who has been rather sympathetic about my circumstances. Though early days, it feels fantastic to be developing a relationship with someone who upholds my values and limits. I'm also thinking about drastically altering my life. Though I have always wanted a master's degree, I put it off somewhat because of worries about how it would affect my capacity to support my family financially. I'm now really researching programs and thinking about diving in. Making decisions grounded just on what's best for my future and me feels empowering. I find as I draft this update how much has changed in a few months. The first shock and resentment had subsided to be replaced by a cool determination. I'm actively building the life I want for myself, not only responding to the behavior of my family. To those of you perhaps handling such familial problems, I want to say it gets better. Although setting limits is difficult and there can be reactions, keep firm. Your rights include those to guard your mental health, money, and personal belongings. Again, I appreciate all of your support on this trip. Your guidance and support have been a lifesaver. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for my connection with my sister and parents, I know I will be fine whatever comes of it. Right now I'm stronger, more certain of myself, and ready to meet whatever lies ahead. If there are any major changes, I will notify once more. For now, I am focused on forward-looking and creating the life I want surrounded by supportive people. Here's wisdom earned and fresh starts. Update 4. My last update was 6 months ago, and I felt it was time to let all of you, who have been so encouraging over this path, know the most recent developments. First, the most news. I have been accepted into a master's program in a city 3 hours from where I presently live. This 2-year financial technology program fits very nicely with my professional objectives. Starting this fall, I am equal in excitement and anxiety about this new phase of my life. Choosing to work for this degree was not simple. It involves quitting my career, relocating to a new place and starting some student debt, but it also means making investments in my future, in the manner I have always wanted. I came to see that I had been holding back, constantly weighing how my choices might affect my family. It seems quite freeing to now be choosing based on what would be best for me. Regarding my family, things have changed in ways I never would have predicted. 2 months ago, the no-contact period with my parents formally came to an end. I agreed to a family therapy session run under the direction of a professional therapist. It was quite strong. Defensively still believing they had done nothing wrong, my parents arrived, but as the session went on, some shockingly real facts emerged. My dad had hidden from everyone, including my mom, a large loss of money from a poor investment. For months they had been covertly struggling financially, and they looked to my credit card to keep appearances. Many tears and accusations followed from this insight. My dad felt guilty of his bad financial choices, my mom felt deceived by his silence, and both of them at once seemed to realize the weight of what they had done to me. Although this justification does not absolve their behavior, it did enable me to see the desperation driving their bad decisions. The therapist guided us through some of these problems, and for the first time both of my parents sincerely apologized. Monthly family therapy sessions are going to continue under our agreement. Though I'm still keeping strict limits and it's a gradual process, I feel cautiously hopeful about reconstructing our connection on better terms. Emma has kept developing and maturing. She moved into her own apartment and started working full-time in order to reach financial independence. Our conversations have become more frequent, and I feel as though I am first starting to know my sister as an adult. She has even sought guidance on saving and budgeting, which is a major advancement in our relationship. Personal-wise, the relationship I highlighted in my last update has evolved into something unique. Though it means we will be doing long distance for a period, Sarah has been quite encouraging of my choice to return to school. Her own experiences with establishing limits with family have made her a great source of insight and encouragement. Financially, I am in good shape. Thanks to the encouragement I got, I was able to somewhat offset the expenses of graduate school and save a sizable sum for my move. I have also started to defend my financial data far more aggressively. I recently had to turn down an attempt by a distant relative to guilt me into co-signing a loan. Though it wasn't easy, I stood my ground and felt good about imposing limits. I've been thinking about how much has changed since that first startling phone call from my mother concerning the credit card charges as I get ready for this next phase of my life. The hurt and resentment I had then have mostly disappeared. Instead, I now feel empowerment and self-assurance I never realized I had. This process has taught me so much. Even, and especially, with family, I now see the value of establishing and upholding limits. True family, whether related by blood or by choice, promotes your development and respects your boundaries. I have come to see that it is okay to give my own well-being and future top priority. Thank you to everyone who has tracked my narrative and provided encouragement and guidance along the road. During some quite trying circumstances, your words have been a lighthouse of strength and clarity. To anyone who might be experiencing similar family conflicts, know that it is possible to emerge on the other side wiser and stronger. I am excited and full of possibilities as I pack my flat and get ready for this new journey, not something I have felt in years. I'm glad of how far I have gone, and I am excited about what the future presents. I'll be busy with my move and starting school, hence I might not update again for some time. Nonetheless, I will always be appreciative of the help I have gotten here. Here are fresh starts, acquired knowledge, and the bravery to design the life we wish for personally. My parents threatened to skip my wedding if I didn't invite my sister, who slept with my boyfriend. What happened next shocked everyone. I, 28F, never expected to be in this predicament, yet here I am. My sister Lizzie, 26F, and I used to be quite close growing up. We shared a room in our little suburban home, whispering secrets late into the night and daydreaming about our future. Lizzie was always the more outgoing one, with a talent for art and music, whereas I was the studious kind, constantly buried in a book. Despite our disputes, we remained linked. Our parents, John, 55M, and Mary, 53F, raised us to prioritize family above all else. Dad worked long hours as a construction foreman to support us, while Mom worked part-time and ran the family. They instilled in us a strong sense of loyalty and taught us the value of sticking together through thick and thin. Little did I know how much my familial loyalty would be tested in the coming years. I met Jake, 30M, in my sophomore year of college. He was a senior, personable and popular, with a love of books that mirrored mine. We bonded over our mutual love of classic novels, and we spent many hours in quaint coffee shops talking about our favorite authors. Jake was my first serious boyfriend, and I fell hard and quickly. After graduation, Jake opted to stay in town and work at a local publishing business. Our relationship grew stronger, and we soon began discussing our future together. We moved in together after graduation, sharing a small but comfortable apartment near the city center. Jake was always supportive of my marketing career goals and encouraged me to aim high. Meanwhile, Lizzie had decided to pursue her passion for art rather than attend college. She worked several jobs to support herself while attempting to establish a name in the local art community. I admired her tenacity and determination, even though our parents were dismayed by her decision not to pursue more study. Jake and Lizzie hit it off from the start. They shared an interest in indie music and abstract art, frequently engaged in passionate debates about the newest gallery openings or underground bands. I was overjoyed that my boyfriend and sister got along so well, never suspecting that their relationship would develop into something more sinister. 5 years into our partnership, Jake and I were doing well. We'd weathered the storms of early adulthood together, including job changes, financial difficulties, and the death of our beloved childhood dog. We had even begun casually researching engagement rings online, fantasizing about a future wedding and the family we would create together. In contrast, Lizzie's life was more turbulent. She moved from job to job, trying to make ends meet while pursuing her art. There were times when she'd crash on our couch, and Jake and I would assist her financially. I didn't mind, after all, she was my sister, and I wanted to support her goals. Everything changed on a wet Tuesday in April. I had a large presentation at work and discovered I had left some important data on my home laptop. Knowing Lizzie was staying with us that week, I contacted and requested her to send the files to me. She agreed, and I didn't think anything more about it. Hours later, after completing my presentation, I opened my inbox to locate the files from Lizzie, but there was something else, an email thread that Lizzie had mistakenly left open when she gave the files. My heart stopped as I read the letters between her and Jake, which contained intimate information and arrangements for their secret rendezvous. I felt as if the ground had vanished beneath me. I left work early, my thoughts reeling, and confronted Jake in our apartment. He attempted to downplay it at first, claiming it was just a few innocent flirtations, but as I revealed more of what I'd read, his justifications fell apart. Jake finally confessed to a 6-month romance with Lizzie. He claimed that it began innocently, late-night conversations when I was sleeping or working late, a common interest for art that grew into something more. He stated he never wanted to hurt me, that he was confused about his emotions. I couldn't endure hearing it any longer and urged him to leave. Confronting Lizzie was even more challenging. I approached her modest studio apartment, my hands trembling as I knocked on the door. When she opened it, her expression sank. She knew I had found out. Unlike Jake, Lizzie did not attempt to offer explanations. She looked me in the eyes and told me she'd fallen in love with Jake, that they hadn't planned it but couldn't resist their feelings. The following several months were a haze of agony and hatred. I moved out of the apartment I shared with Jake and stayed on a friend's couch until I could locate my own place. I put myself into work, picking up extra assignments to keep my mind occupied. I cut off all contact with Jake and Lizzie, blocking their phone numbers and social media profiles. My parents were devastated by the news. They attempted to mediate at first, encouraging me to hear Lizzie out and contemplate forgiveness, but I couldn't handle the thought of being in the same room with her. The treachery was too new, too deep. They eventually stopped pushing, but I could see the sadness in their eyes every time the subject came up. After nearly a year of treatment and self-reflection, I felt ready to date again. I first met Alex, 32M, at a charity fundraiser at the local animal shelter. He was tall, with nice eyes and a kind grin that put me at ease right away. We bonded over our mutual love of dogs and our volunteer experiences at the shelter. Alex was kind and compassionate as I discussed my past. He never pushed me to go faster than I felt comfortable with, always respecting my limits. Slowly but gradually, I found myself falling in love again, this time with a man who genuinely liked and admired me. 2 years into our relationship, Alex proposed on a morning trek to our favorite viewing point. It was simple, private and beautiful. As we started planning our wedding, I felt a mixture of excitement and dread. The thought of walking down the aisle again triggered memories I'd rather forget. Everything was going fine until my dad mentioned inviting Lizzie to the wedding. They contended that she is still family and should be present on my special day. The very suggestion made my stomach turn. How could I celebrate the most joyful day of my life with someone who had given me so much pain? I adamantly refused, informing my parents that Lizzie's presence would just bring up sad memories and could ruin the day. Alex agreed with me, saying that our wedding should be about our love and happiness, not attempting to patch relationships that may be beyond repair. My parents did not take it well. They accused me of being petty and unwilling to move forward. They even threatened not to go if Lizzie was not invited. Some of our relatives have also gotten involved, accusing me of selfishness for separating the family and asking me to be a better person. But I don't believe I'm in the wrong here. Lizzie deceived me in the worst manner possible. She slept with the man I expected to spend my life with. I fought hard to overcome that anguish and start a new life with Alex. I don't want anything to compromise my newfound contentment and calm. Reddit, am I wrong to not invite my sister to my wedding? Am I being petty, or do I have the right to remove someone who has badly injured me from one of the most important events in my life? Update 1. I'd like to thank everyone who left helpful comments and advice on my first article. The response was amazing, and it gave me the confidence to have a difficult but essential conversation with my parents. I invited them over to supper last week, determined to clear the air and establish some boundaries. The evening started out tense. Mom kept trying to shift the talk toward wedding plans, while Dad was unusually silent. After we finished our meal, I took a big breath and went in. I described in detail how Lizzie's actions had affected me, including the sleepless nights, trust issues that nearly ruined my relationship with Alex, and the therapy sessions I need to work through my pain. I told them about the panic attacks I used to get anytime I saw a couple that reminded me of Jake and Lizzie, how I'd lost weight because food tasted bad, and how I'd poured myself into work to avoid dealing with my feelings. To my amazement, Mom burst into tears midway through my explanation. Between sobbing, she acknowledged that they had pushed for Lizzie's inclusion out of remorse. It turned out that Lizzie's life had spiraled drastically after the incident. My parents told me that Lizzie had lost her job at the gallery where she had been working. Her drinking, which had previously been sociable, had progressed to the point that she was rarely sober. She'd been in a run of short-lived, destructive relationships, one of which left her in the hospital with a broken arm. Mom and Dad felt responsible for not seeing Lizzie's problem sooner. They scolded themselves for applauding her free spirit without acknowledging that she may have required more guidance and assistance. In their thoughts, inviting Lizzie to the wedding was a means to reintegrate her into the group and possibly help her get her life back on track. While I sympathized with Lizzie's hardships, I made it clear that this did not excuse her behavior or erase the anguish she caused me. I reminded them of all the instances they had assisted Lizzie financially and emotionally over the years, emphasizing how supportive they had always been as parents. I emphasized that I was not responsible for Lizzie's well-being, and I shouldn't have to give up my peace of mind for her. Dad, who had kept silent for the majority of the conversation, suddenly piped out. He told me a story from his own background that I had never heard before. Apparently, his older brother had done something similar, compromising Dad's trust significantly when they were younger. They had never really reconciled, and I could see sadness in Dad's eyes as he recounted decades of stressful family reunions and squandered possibilities. He stated that he did not want the same for Lizzie and me, which is why he has been pushing for reconciliation. But he also admitted that he couldn't compel forgiveness and that healing had to happen on my own terms. Dad apologized for pressuring me and promised that he and Mom would respect my decision regarding the wedding. He also told me that they would attend, with or without Lizzie. My parents agreed to speak with the relatives who had been causing me problems and explain the issue. They vowed to stop any future attempts to guilt-trip me into inviting Lizzie. After this emotional chat, I felt as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Although my feelings remained unresolved, I felt heard and understood by my parents for the first time since the ordeal began. Alex, who had made himself scarce during the dinner to allow us peace, was quite supportive when I told him later that night. He held me while I cried, a mixture of relief and anguish sweeping over me. He advised we take a weekend trip to decompress and refocus on our wedding planning. We had a wonderful weekend at a nearby beach town, simply enjoying each other's company and finalizing some wedding plans. We chose our wedding cake, chocolate with raspberry filling, planned the celebration playlist, and even practiced our first dance on the beach under the starlight. This event has increased my appreciation for Alex. He's been my rock through it all, constantly prioritizing my sentiments and wholeheartedly supporting me. I am more confident than ever that I am marrying the right guy. The wedding is now less than 2 months away, and I'm looking forward to celebrating our love with those who actually care about us. I still feel sad about Lizzie's absence, but I know this is the best decision for my mental health and happiness. Thank you again, Reddit, for assisting me in standing my ground and prioritizing my well-being. Your support has meant more than you realize. Update 2. It has been a crazy few weeks since my last post, and I have some unexpected news to offer. I received Lizzie's letter around 3 weeks ago. The envelope lay on our kitchen counter for days, and I hesitated whether to open it or throw it away. Alex, ever the voice of reason, argued that reading it might bring some closure, even if I choose not to react. Finally, on a peaceful Sunday morning, I mustered the confidence to open the letter. It was many pages lengthy and contained Lizzie's trademark loopy handwriting. As I read, I could practically hear her voice in my thoughts, recalling late-night chats and secrets from our youth. Lizzie began by acknowledging the grief she had caused me, accepting full responsibility for her actions without making excuses. She wrote of the downward spiral her life had taken after Jake left her, and how she turned to drink to alleviate her remorse and shame. She admitted to suffering from depression, which had begun long before the episode with Jake but had increased dramatically thereafter. Her admission that she was going to rehab stunned me the most. She had apparently been in a treatment facility for the previous 6 months, focusing on her sobriety and mental wellness. She wrote of the grueling treatment sessions, group gatherings, and the difficult task of confronting her demons. Lizzie mentioned that part of her healing journey was making amends to individuals she had harmed. She clarified that she did not seek forgiveness and respected my decision not to include her at the wedding. Her intention in writing was just to apologize and inform me that she was attempting to become a better person. The letter finished with a story from our childhood. I stood up for her against some bullies at school. Lizzie stated that she had always admired my tenacity and honesty, and that betraying me was her biggest regret in life. I'd want to say that after reading the letter, I felt a rush of forgiveness, but the truth is that I was left conflicted. A part of me remained furious and sad, while another sensed a glimmer of the sisterly affection we had shared. I decided to take some time to examine my emotions before making any decisions. After a few days of deliberation and numerous conversations with Alex, I decided to meet Lizzie at a neutral location, a quiet cafe in town. Seeing her in person after 3 years seemed weird. She looked different, thinner, with black circles under her eyes, but she exuded a peace that had not been there before. Our conversation began awkwardly, with many pauses and hesitant phrases, but as we spoke, it became easier. Lizzie restated what she had said in the letter, her voice breaking with emotion as she apologized once more for the hurt she had caused. She told me more about her sober journey and the work she had done in therapy. Lizzie even showed me a journal in which she had been writing letters to me as part of her recovery, though she had no intention of sending them. Reading excerpts from her genuine unedited thoughts during those sad days was eye-opening. I will not lie, it was an emotional meeting. We both shed tears as we discussed the past and the agony we had both endured. Lizzie revealed that she and Jake had split up just months after I discovered them, their relationship collapsing under the weight of guilt and resentment. She hadn't communicated with him since. By the end of our appointment, I felt a sense of closure that I hadn't realized I needed. The wrath that had been burning inside me for years began to subside, and was replaced by a complex mix of sadness, relief, and cautious hope. After much deliberation and debate with Alex, I have decided not to invite Lizzie to the wedding. It's too soon and I want to enjoy my special day without additional worry or mental issues. However, I've agreed to try to re-establish our friendship gradually, beginning with occasional text messages and perhaps coffee meets in the future. Lizzie acknowledged and appreciated my decision. She even sent Alex and me a modest gift, a lovely hand-painted letter wishing us success in our marriage. It reminded me of the cards she used to make for my birthdays when we were younger, which brought back bittersweet memories. I understand that this process of healing and regaining trust will be long and may be challenging. There are still times when the anguish of betrayal resurfaces, reminding me of everything we have lost. But for the first time in 3 years, I am optimistic about having my sister back in my life eventually. The wedding preparations are in full flow. Alex and I are delighted to celebrate our love with our closest friends and family. While Lizzie will not be present, I am more at ease with that decision now. Our special day will be spent looking forward to our future together, rather than lingering on past hurts. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my wedding, and I wanted to provide you with a last report on this chapter of my life. The wedding day was simply wonderful. Alex and I exchanged vows in front of our loved ones in the stunning vineyard setting we had chosen. The weather was perfect, with a moderate breeze and brilliant blue skies that appeared to reflect the joy I felt inside my heart. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, my gaze fixed on Alex's. All of the drama and pain of the previous years seemed to fade away in that instant. As I stood at the altar with my soon-to-be husband, all I could feel was love and appreciation. The ceremony was modest and personal, with readings picked by our closest friends and vows written by ourselves. There wasn't a dry eye in the house when Alex swore to always be my safe harbor, and I promised to be his constant companion throughout life's experiences. The reception was a happy occasion. The meal was wonderful, the wine was plenty, and the dance floor was full all night. My parents were on their best behavior, honoring Alex and me with no mention of Lizzie. It was great to see them so joyful and supportive. Lizzie followed my requests and did not attempt to contact me on the wedding day. Instead, she delivered a gorgeous bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite flower since childhood, to my hotel room. The accompanying note congratulated us and wished us a life of happiness. It was a lovely gesture that I appreciated even more than I had imagined. Since the wedding, Alex and I have adjusted into married life, which has been fantastic. We recently purchased our first home together, a quaint craftsman-style house with a modest backyard. We've enjoyed making it our own by painting the walls and adding a garden. It feels nice to be starting a life together and making new memories in a space that is genuinely ours. My friendship with Lizzie is gradually improving. We've had a few more coffee meetings and are now texting on a regular basis. Our chats are still somewhat guarded, but there is a developing comfort between us that reminds me of our previous connection. Last month, we even ate dinner with our parents. It was a little awkward at begin, with everyone trying to avoid certain issues, but as the evening proceeded it became more like old times. Lizzie remains committed to her recovery and has been making significant improvements in her life. She's back in school, training to be a counselor for disturbed teenagers. She thinks her own experiences have given her insight into the difficulties that young people encounter, and she wants to help others avoid the mistakes she did. Seeing her progress and commitment to changing her life has aided me in my forgiveness journey. Lizzie recently inquired if she might exhibit some of her work at a local gallery. I hesitated at first, recollections of her previous artistic pursuits triggering conflicting feelings, but I decided to go. With Alex by my side for support. Walking into the gallery, I was taken aback by the transformation in her work. The chaotic dark pieces of her turbulent years were replaced by brilliant, hopeful canvases that appeared to throb with life. One painting in particular caught my eye. 2 interwoven trees with branches reaching for the sky. Lizzie subsequently told me that it reflected her wish for our relationship to flourish together again after our separation. While we are not back to being best friends, and I doubt we ever will be, I am delighted we are working to mend our friendship. It's a lengthy process, with occasional setbacks when past hurts resurface, but it feels right. We're learning to be sisters again in a way that honors our separate paths and who we've become. I would like to thank everyone who helped me through this difficult time. Your guidance and encouragement helped me stay strong and make the best decisions for myself. I've learned a lot about setting boundaries, self-care, and the power of forgiveness, not for the benefit of the other person, but for my own peace of mind. Looking back, I recognize that the healing process isn't linear. There are good days and bad days, moments of progress and moments of uncertainty, but I'm pleased of how far I've gone and enthusiastic about what the future holds with Alex. To anyone in a similar situation, remember that it is acceptable to prioritize your personal well-being. Healing takes time, and you don't have to forgive somebody until you're ready to do so. Trust your intuition, surround yourself with helpful people, and do not be hesitant to seek professional help if necessary. As for me, I'm looking forward to the next chapter in my relationship with Alex. We're talking about starting a family soon, and the prospect of becoming parents both excites and scares us. Whatever problems come our way, I am confident that we will confront them together, stronger for having weathered the storm. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. Survivor of incest and closed adoption confronts biological daughter's persistent attempts at reconnection despite repeated rejections. I don't know if this is the right place, but I've exhausted other means of support. When I was 12, I suffered a short period of horrible abuse from a distant relative, and ended up pregnant. My religious parents were adamant about choosing life, while maintaining their crystal clear image in the community, and I was sent to live with my grandmother for my 7th grade year. I ended up giving birth a few weeks after my 13th birthday, and immediately handed the child over to her adoptive parents. who at the time seemed like wonderful people. The only people who even knew of my pregnancy in my life, aside from authorities and medical personnel, were my parents, my grandmother, one of my brothers, and my therapist. My husband is also aware. I'm now 32, I have been married to the man of my dreams for 2 years and pregnant with what will be our first children together. Lucked out with twins, as we require IVF to conceive. It took me the rest of my childhood and the better part of my 20s to get over what happened to me. I finally was able to heal, put it past me, and now for the past 5 years or so I'm able to go months at a time without thinking about it. I had a closed adoption. I made it clear to the adoptive parents I wanted absolutely no contact whatsoever, and I never held the baby I gave away, something I do not regret to this day. I have avoided ever having social media, partially to avoid being found. In the beginning of September, I received a phone call from a PI letting me know my biological daughter wanted to meet me and had hired him to track me down. I immediately made it clear I have no interest in contact, and to please leave me alone. By the end of November I had received multiple phone calls and letters from my biological daughter, begging me to meet her. I wrote her a letter in return, telling her I'm happy she's had a great life, but that I have no interest in contact. I made it clear, I will not stop her at all from reaching out to extended family. I won't be mad if she outs me as her biological mother, and pursues a relationship with my relatives. She did reach out to my brother, who immediately blocked her on Facebook. I would prefer she didn't, but I don't think it's my place to keep her from doing so. On Tuesday, she showed up at my front door while I was at work. My husband answered, and immediately told her to please leave, or he would have to call the police. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to explain to her in any other way, that I do not want to meet her. I also don't want to be cruel. I don't view her as my daughter, as horrible as that sounds. I do wish her the best, but I have built a life I'm finally comfortable with. I don't want her to be part of it. If there is any insight any adoptees could provide on how I could explain this to her without having to just be brutally honest and also sparing her feelings. Or birth moms, who have gone through a similar thing. Relevant comments. Comment 1, comment deleted by user OP. I ended up writing her another letter, explaining how she was conceived, how many years it took for me to finally feel like a human being again, and how my unwillingness to meet her has nothing to do with her personally, and everything to do with needing to preserve my own mental health. I asked that she please leave me and the one brother she reached out to alone. I again stressed, I would not stop her from reaching out to extended family, and I included a packet of information about our family medical history and some watercolor pictures that my grandmother and I made together when I was pregnant with her. Comment 2. Question: did her adoptive parents know about the circumstances of her conception? OP: her parents were made aware by my parents about details surrounding her conception before the adoption took place. Comment 3. While I don't condone her behavior, do try to understand what forces would drive someone to behave that way. What you and your husband are doing is, to put it very bluntly, a cruelty. It's understandable, but no less cruel. It makes sense that you don't view her as your daughter. But it also makes sense that she might seek to know who she is by knowing you. As an adopted kid growing up, I wondered endlessly about who I was, and I felt like the only way to get a sense of it was to track down biological relatives. Which I did do, and, funny enough, I experienced a little bit of what you described doing to her. It more or less worked out for me. She's a 19-year-old woman who just wants to know who she is. It actually may be healing for you also to erase the trauma of what you went through at 13, and giving up the child then, by replacing it with this new person, whom you may find you relate to as a peer, rather than your child. You may see her more as a younger sister, and that may actually be a great relationship for the two of you. The best situation I could see happening would be for you to welcome her interest, and accept her as a legitimate part of your life and family, for you and your husband to get over your resistance to the fact that she exists. I know my own birth mother's husband had to deal with this to a degree. Resisting her will actually just make things more unpleasant and have them linger, like the second shoe that never drops. While dropping the resistance may be the most peaceful path to her leaving on her own, or better yet, co-creating the kind of relationship that works for everyone involved. Obviously, as an adopted kid, I'm going to advocate for other adopted kids getting whatever they can to gain some closure about their own adoption experience. Adoption is, itself, traumatic. And it echoes throughout life. I think it would do both of you a world of good to hop on a phone together and for you to explain what your resistance is about. OP: nothing will erase the trauma I went through at 12 and 13 years old. In the span of a little over a year, I went from a little girl who still played with Barbies, to being forced to go through the extremely traumatic birth of an unwanted child. She is welcome to be a part of the lives and family of my extended family. Someday when my own children are grown, They are free to know and love her. For my own life, I choose not to have her as part of it. As painful as it is, she is a physical reminder of the worst events that have ever happened to myself and my brother. Telling me it may be healing for me or erase my abuse, to get to know her is, in a way, condescending. At no point did I attempt to make a claim that I know her trauma, nor will I ever trivialize it. I will never know the loss she feels, or the pain and unique trauma that comes along with being an adoptee. I won't claim to know what's best for her to heal, or any other person. I wish her nothing but the best, but I won't be hopping on the phone with her anytime soon. I won't pretend to know your trauma, don't pretend to know mine. I wish you and your family happiness and health. Adoption is challenging, and it seems often tragic for many parties involved. Comment 3. Threatening to have your daughter arrested because she wants to meet you seems a bit excessive. OP, a woman who is a stranger to my husband, showed up at our front door, demanding to see his wife, me, in the middle of a pandemic, while I am 26 weeks pregnant with our first children. She was shouting demanding to see me, and he calmly told her to leave or he would get the police involved. I don't think he acted out of line, or in excess. Comment 4. You didn't say that in your original post. All you wrote was, on Tuesday, she showed up at my front door while I was at work, my husband answered, and immediately told her to please leave or he would have to call the police. OP, at the time, it didn't seem necessary to say. She, a stranger, that I expressed I did not want any contact with, presumably drove across state lines to come to my home, while I am knowingly pregnant during a pandemic to see me. I am sympathetic to everything she's going through, but it was extremely unsettling for my husband, and I don't blame him at all. He's understandably protective of me. Comment 5. It's unsettling to see so many people refer to this 19-year-old girl as some malicious woman, including OP. She's a child and she is acting like one. OP. At no point did I make her out to be a malicious woman. She is definitely young, and I understand that that is part of where her lack of impulse control comes from. I have given her as much of an explanation as I'm willing to. I hope that she finds peace and closure in whatever it is she is looking for. Now that I have made her aware of the details surrounding her conception, I hope she can understand better why I make the choices I am making. I am someone who places a lot of value in having my space and boundaries respected. I don't feel I owe her anything. I was a child myself when she was born, and we are both victims of the same man who forced us into this situation. I do not view her as my daughter, and I do not view myself as her mother. I think we are two people biologically tied as parent and offspring, and tied by a series of extremely traumatic events that we had no choices in. I did not feel familial kinship for her while I was forced to keep an unwanted pregnancy, and I did not feel familial kinship for her when I was forced through a traumatic birth, and to be brutally honest, I do not feel familial kinship towards her now. I wish her well, and I hope she finds peace, but I do not feel in any way a parent to her. I don't know her trauma and will never know her trauma, in the same ways that she will never know mine. I don't think she has malicious intent. Comment 6. Yes, you did. But when confronted about that, several times, simply deny the misconstruction of the poor girl. OP. I have empathy for her, to a point. We all have the right to our boundaries being respected. Update, TLDR. When I was 13, I gave birth after being forced to go through a pregnancy that resulted from incest rape. The child was adopted through a closed adoption. After she initiated contact, sought a reunion, I declined wanting contact, and she has now shown up at my home twice. I reluctantly agreed to a phone call with said young woman today, and I know without a doubt that she is entirely unwelcome in my life. As stated in responses to comments in my original posts, I ended up writing my birth daughter another letter explaining to her the circumstances of her birth and why I do not want contact with her. I also included a few watercolors I did with my grandmother while I was pregnant with her, and an extensive packet of information regarding family medical history. I overnight FedExed it to the address I had for her. Sadly, in the late hours of last night, she showed up at my house again, this time while I was home, and pounded on my front door, screaming. My husband and I tried to ignore it, but we got a phone call from our neighbors that they would call the police if we didn't answer our door to handle the situation, and I honestly didn't want to start Christmas Eve with getting someone clearly going through the thick of it arrested. My husband spoke to her via our home doorbell alarm system thing. When this did not placate her, I literally barricaded myself in our bathroom, and he went out the back door, locking it, and then around the front to speak to her. I could hear him screaming at her, unpleasant, but apparently effective, because she finally left. This morning, I received a phone call from her adoptive parents apologizing to me, that they never fully disclosed how she was conceived, and that they helped fund the PI, which is how she found me, hoping it would lead to a more happy reunion. What they did tell me, they told her, that she was the result of rape, What they lied to her about was that it was my parents who made me give her away, and that I always loved her, chose life and wanted to keep her if I'd been older. All lies, and it seems she received a similar very religious upbringing that I did. I ended up agreeing to speak with her on the phone, facilitated by her birth parents, if she understood that now she has to leave me alone, or I will pursue legal advice, and will not hesitate to call the police if she were to ever come to my home ever again. I was very blunt with her, because I felt that she's already been lied to 100 times. It probably would have been better to do the conversation through a therapist, but honestly I'm just happy it's over. She asked me if I loved her as her daughter, the way I love the children I'm pregnant with. I told I have love for her as a human being, but that I would not lie and say I felt like a mother to her. That she's only 5 years younger than my own husband, and that I don't love her in any maternal way, but I do love her as my sister in humanity. She asked me if I wish I had an abortion. I said that at the time, I wanted an abortion. That the trauma I felt would have been significantly reduced if I were allowed to terminate the pregnancy forced upon me by my rapist. I also said I wouldn't go back and change what happened now, because she already exists, and I would never wish away her existence. She asked me about my faith and if I am still a very conservative religious background, that I guess she shares. I told her no, that I am not even a Christian. She asked me about my political beliefs and if I support murdering babies. I said I'm 100% pro-choice, that I'm a socialist and an anti-capitalist, but that I don't think being conservative makes you a bad person. Not really related, but I felt the need to say it. We talked about other things for a bit, mostly her asking me, because if I'm being honest, I don't really care to ask her anything about herself. She asked me if I forgave her birth father, and if I ever spoke to him. And if I would ever consider visiting him with her. I told her that I will never forgive him. That I don't ascribe to Christian ideas of having to forgive. When pressed further about information related to him, I told her to ask my parents for any further information, and take the time to read the second letter I wrote her. I provided her mother with contact information for my own parents. I'm hoping to close this chapter of my life. I can't imagine speaking with me gave her much peace, but I hope she's satisfied. My husband and I are now considering moving so that she can't find us again. I don't feel any better having spoken with her. If anything, I'm reassured about choosing never to see her in person. She seems like a broken person, and I hope she finds her own healing, but I do not want her as part of my life. She seems like the kind of person I wouldn't get along with, and would never respect boundaries. I get that she has so much trauma of her own, and I hope she is able to leave the religious community she belongs to, unless she's happy there. I don't feel guilty that her life wasn't everything it could have been. I do feel sympathy that she obviously has been raised in a similar toxic religious household. I am glad this is over. I've disconnected my landline, and am changing my cell phone number. I am going to restart therapy at the beginning of next year, and if she ever shows up at my home again I will be calling the police. Relevant comments. Comment 1. You did everything possible to help her while still keeping that boundary clear. I applaud you for that. I know this was very distributive to your life and she had no right to it and obviously crossed the line multiple times. It makes a lot more sense now hearing about the involvement of the adoptive parents and how they have hurt the situation. They should have never ever told her those things, never crossed a line with the PI and never encouraged her to keep pursuing this. It was completely inappropriate and entirely their fault honestly. The girl is just acting in the way you would expect for her age and upbringing in the context of what she had been told. I'm sure that as she gets older she will think back to this and possibly read through everything you gave her multiple times. She will be able to process it and most likely be able to understand where you're coming from. She will appreciate the information and the honesty at some point. She is just a child and everything that she had ever thought about the situation and the possibilities of a relationship is completely wrong. That's a lot to stomach for anyone, let alone a kid. Try not to be angry with her about this. If anything, be angry at those parents. They are the ones responsible for putting her on this mission. OP. I'm not angry with her, I don't hate her. She's obviously a scared teenager in need of guidance, and I hope she finds the answers she is looking for. Comment 2. Is her birth father in prison? Did he ever get any kind of punishment? Also, I'm so sorry for everything that has happened. Being pregnant after a forced pregnancy is so hard. I was also pregnant after I was raped, and now that I'm pregnant again I've noticed things being weird in my head. OP. He spent 16 years in prison. He raped 6 members of my family in 1 year, including myself. Being pregnant after having been pregnant from abuse is strange for sure. My pregnancy is nearly 2 decades apart, but it has brought back weird feelings. I literally chose this pregnancy. My husband and I used IVF, and sometimes I have to double think first thing in the morning of horror at the reaction of my baby bump. Comment 3. Comment removed by moderator. OP, I am now living in a hotel rather than staying in my house while I'm pregnant to avoid having to call the police on her. You're right in that, I don't know her. I don't feel overwhelming and hopefully warm love for her like a mother would, but I care about her as a person. I care for her in that I believe she deserves the very best life and answers to her questions, and emotional support. I just can't be the one to provide it. I am barely holding it together. I've done what I thought showed her respect while respecting myself. You have no right at all to ascribe intentions or feelings towards my actions. Comment 4. The adoptive parents completely disregarded their promise made when adopting her, to keep her safe. Nothing they told her kept her emotionally safe, and even put her in potential physical danger by encouraging and facilitating the hiring of a PI, which is what led to these late-night door poundings and overly emotional decision-making. I'm so angry at them for OP and for her. OP, they were unfair to her, and I'm angry with them for this reason, and not her. I'm so pissed they lied to her. I'm also a bit angry with my own parents, because at the time of the adoption I was told her parents were non-denominational Christians and not part of my parents' insane sect of Christianity. Comment 5. Wow, it just keeps getting worse. I'm really sorry. I'd be extremely angry with the adoptive parents as well. I might be more inclined to give my parents the benefit of the doubt and ask if they'd been lied to, as well, since the adoptive parents are obviously extremely dishonest, willing to tell reprehensible lies to their own child to avoid a difficult conversation. You mentioned that your parents have grown and changed immensely since this all happened. Would you be able to discuss this with them to get some answers and work towards closure, perhaps once you're back in therapy and have guidance? OP, I genuinely thought her parents were good people, all my life, or at least all her life. It never crossed my mind, they weren't. I would have fought harder for a better set of people had I known they were the same type of Christians as my parents. I'm definitely going to be speaking with my parents about this, with the facilitation of a mental health professional, when given the chance. Honestly, my parents were such jerks and liars when I was a kid, they genuinely may not remember telling this specific lie. They are pretty awesome people now, and have spent like 15 years working so hard to change. I obviously don't excuse their behavior ever, but I do think they will be open to talk about this, and admit their part. If you're talking about speaking with her parents, I really don't think that's going to happen. Comment 6. I just asked this some seconds ago. The parents who allowed to be raped and rug-swept it, are more deserving of empathy, consideration than the poor girl, innocent in all that mess. Come on. OP, I know my parents. They raised me. They are far from perfect. I don't see them all the time, but I have an established relationship with them that spans 32 years. My biological child is a stranger to me. I don't know her, I don't know her intentions. I haven't spent hundreds of hours in therapy with her, over nearly 2 decades, picking apart and rebuilding our relationship. She's now come to my home uninvited, 3 times, after I've asked her multiple times to leave me alone. She's stalked me at this point, and I've done nothing but try to be sympathetic to her. My parents aren't perfect people, but they've spent over a decade fundamentally reassessing who they are, what they believe and the role they played in the traumatic childhood of my brother and I. They respect every boundary I ask of them nowadays, they know the part they played and own up to how fucked if they were when I was a kid, and they are amazing parents to much younger brother than they ever were to my brother and I. My relationship with my own parents isn't up for debate here. OP, just to make it clear, my parents absolutely never allowed myself or my brother to be raped. OP, I never said they were more deserving of empathy than her. I don't think they are. Additionally, my parents again, far from perfect, but did support my brother, myself, my maternal cousins, and my paternal aunt emotionally when we testified against our rapist. Comment 7. Comment deleted by user OP, I disagree. I was a child when I had her against my will. I begged my parents and then my grandmother to please not force me to give birth. I don't know what more could be asked of me. I made it clear I did not want contact with her. She pushed for contact, and I gave it to her. I'm not going to lie to her. Her adoptive parents have already done enough of that. I hope she heals. I hope she has a great life. I just don't want any part of it. Honestly, I hope she has a great relationship with her biological grandparents, my own parents, if that's what she wants. I hope she meets them, and I hope they give her the biological connection she craves. They are entirely different people from when I was young, and I can honestly say they are good people now. I would not classify them as good parents when I was growing up, but decades and a lot of therapy can change things. I hope she finds joy. I hope she finds peace.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.